We did a Mario Kart World ranking 3 weeks ago, so now it's time for me to rank every single track in Mario Kart World. This is going to work pretty much exactly the same as the previous Mario Kart Wii track ranking. I'll give a brief summary of each track and talk about the things that I like or don't like about them. If you want a more in-depth, detailed examination of each track, then go check out my Grand Prix Cup ranking video because I go way more in depth with each track, along with the intermission tracks there. The way I'll be racing on these tracks is by playing through the Versus mode, so certain tracks that repeat like Crown City and Peach Stadium will only be judged based on the layout given in Versus mode. Before we get into the rankings, I've noticed that 95% of my viewers aren't subscribed, so if you want to be a part of the cool people, why don't you just go ahead and tap that subscribe button. We've got 30 tracks to go, so let's get right into every Mario Kart World track ranked. Number 30, Peach Stadium. Who could have seen this one coming? Peach Stadium uses the layout of the version we see in the Special Cup. While it is the superior version of it, it still sucks for a Mario Kart World track. Basically, all the track boils down to is going up, and then going back down. Along the way there's a few rails to grind and walls to ride, but nothing unique and out of the ordinary. They could have done so much more with the Peach Stadium, but unfortunately the track looks bland and is designed exactly how it looks. Number 29, Desert Hills. Yeah, we talked about this in the Grand Prix Cup ranking. I don't think Anakin needs to give the whole spiel again, but basically we don't like sand for a bunch of reasons. This track looks and plays boring, which isn't too much of a surprise considering most desert tracks don't have the best track record in the series. There's some Moai heads which are pretty funny I guess, but other than that there's nothing to Desert Hills. Number 28, Away Oasis. Another track that's just unfortunately pretty boring to look at. Away Oasis is much more fun to drive on than the previous two tracks however, and actually switches the track design up a little bit. Halfway through the track there's a water section, and on the final stretch you get to drive on a pretty looking waterfall. Also, this track teases me by acting like there's going to be a bunch of animals on the track, but spoiler alert, there's not. Number 27, Koopa Troopa Beach. A very basic track that has you go around in circles. At least to compensate for the boring track design, you get to race on it a whole 5 times instead of the normal 3, so that's pretty cool. I mean, hey, what are you supposed to expect from an SNES remake track? The music is pretty good, but that's about all this track has going for it. Number 26, Crown City. Another track that repeats, but it's so much better than Peach Stadium. It actually uses both of the different layouts that the track has to offer, and they're decently fun to drive on. Of course, it is still a city track background, so there isn't anything visually appealing here. I like the rooftop section quite a bit, but that's about it for the things that I like. Overall, just a mid-track that could have been so much better. Number 25, Mario Bros. Circuit. The introductory track to the game, and overall it does a fine job of showing off the new grinding mechanic. Not so much on showcasing the far cooler wall riding one though. Unlike other stadium-like beginner tracks, Mario Bros. Circuit has a more desert and wasteland type feel to it. I don't care for that too much, but it's cool that they switched it up for once. The track design is as basic can be, but there's some neat things here I guess, like a glider ramp towards the end. Exactly what I expected from the very first track, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It does what it sets out to do by introducing one of the new mechanics pretty well. Number 24, Bones Burnout. While it's still decently low, this is so much better than the other Dry Bones track that was in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. A lava-themed track that doesn't really pop out to me. It's not horrible, but there are a couple instances where my brain turned off and just started racing. I just don't find there to be anything special or intriguing about the track design. I like the glider ramp leading up to the Dry Bones skull, but that's about the only thing of note. Just a pretty bland track, but hey, it could be worse. Number 23, Mario Circuit. I know this should probably be a bit lower, but I love the fact that instead of just remaking one old Mario Circuit track, they combined multiple to make one big track. It even still has that classic SNES feel that the other remakes of the track like this have. Obviously this has a very basic track design and the only obstacles are pipes scattered across the track, but I don't mind it too much. I also for some reason really like tricking off of this ramp. No particular reason why, just fun to do. Number 22, Salty Speedway. Another stupidly basic track with not much interesting track design present. Complaining aside, I actually do like some things here, like if you wall ride in some areas you can go up to these grind rails and grind on them. I just find the setting pretty bland and basic here. You can even completely avoid the water sections in some capacity by driving along the sides. Not a bad track to race on, but not creative enough from what I normally expect from Mario Kart. Number 21, Mumu Meadows. This is the third video in a row that I've talked about this track, so trust me, I got quite a bit of experience racing on this track. It's a classic, and the only reason it's this low is simply the fact that it's been remade way too much and it gets repetitive. And they even took out the ramp towards the end that I actually really like tricking on. I'm getting tired of talking about Mumu Meadows, and I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk about it, so I think I'm just going to leave this here. Number 20, DK Pass. Now if I was going to choose a DK snow track, I personally would have chosen DK Summit, but I guess it was remade for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so I let this one slide. Unfortunately, they took away the infamous item box that would always contain some mushrooms or a star, so that's pretty sad, but the rest of the track is still pretty fun to race on. I like all the turns as you drive up the mountain and all the little bumps to trick off of. The ending bit is pretty fun too with a nice ramp to trick off of. So why the heck is it so low then? Well, I mean, just take a look at DK Pass, and no, I'm not talking about the beautiful looking snow, I'm talking about how basic it looks and feels. I really like racing on it, but I don't think I can put it too high simply because it isn't creative enough. Number 19, Guy Bazaar. It still feels so weird racing on this track during the daytime just because of how much I was used to racing on it in the nighttime. Obviously a very Middle Eastern themed track, and it's got some really cool theming. I love the market that you drive through and even the branching pathways you can take around halfway through. Of course, there's even a bunch of grind rails to drive on and a bunch of ramps to trick off of. I think at this point in the ranking we're getting to more of the great tracks because despite the intermission tracks, Mario Kart World actually has some pretty good track design. Number 18, Acorn Heights. If Maple Treeway taught me anything, it's that driving on trees is pretty fun. The best part here is the middle section with a bunch of different leaves and mushrooms to trick off of, along with some stems to grind on. The ending section has a bunch of split pathways, but none of the pathways are really all that different. My main gripe with Acorn Heights is that I just feel there aren't as many obstacles as there should be. Yeah, there's some rolling acorns at the end, but other than that, there's nothing. If there's just a bit more going on in Acorn Heights, this would definitely be a lot higher. Number 17, Whistletop Summit. The best introduction to grinding simply because of all the different rails and railroad tracks. I find it so fun tricking from rail onto railroad and back again. There's even a little train that can be seen just chilling about around different portions of the track. I love the constant use of grinding, but that's all this track has going for it. I don't hate that at all, but it can get slightly repetitive at points. Maybe if there were some sections that had us driving between a bunch of different trains or something like that, maybe that would have been a little bit better. Unfortunately, I'm not a game designer, so Nintendo didn't make that happen. Number 16, Starview Peak. Oh boy, my Mario Galaxy bias is really showing now, isn't it? To be fair, this is like the second most beautiful track in the game. Don't worry, we'll get to the most beautiful one far later in the list, but I mean just look at this water section and tell me you wouldn't want to drive on that. I also like that the beginning has some pathways that look very similar to Ice Ice Outpost. On the water section and right after it, there's a bunch of boost rings that you can use and they give this track a lot of flair. I don't care what anyone says, this track absolutely rules and is such a fun one to race on. Number 15, Choco Mountain. We're at the halfway point of the ranking and we got a weird one here. Choco Mountain is a track that's been remade before, but honey, there's no way this is a remake because it feels completely different. Instead of racing on a mountain, it feels like you're racing on some sort of BMX course. There's a bunch of charging chucks and mud absolutely everywhere and give the track some personality. The ending stretch has you drive uphill while dodging some giant boulders trying to make their way down. Choco Mountain has so much action and keeps you engaged throughout the entire runtime. Number 14, Peach Beach. Hey look, it's another track I've talked about in the last 3 videos, but this time I actually do really like this track, plus they've completely changed the second and third laps of the track. The first lap has differing pathways with either some ramps or cataquacks to dodge, but ladies and gentlemen, the second lap is where it's at. You drive uphill and can even grind some rails on the side. All this leads up to some town-like area with a whole lot of wall riding and rails to grind. Third lap has you glide around and wall ride along the sides of buildings. The rest of Peach Beach has you on the water with some ramps in between to brighten things up. Some great upgrades to the track that make Peach Beach so much more fun to race on. Number 13, DK Spaceport. I don't think I would have ever thought of a Mario Kart track that has a Robo DK running around, but hey, it's the big 2025 and anything can happen. This track is cut into a whole bunch of different sections with so many different ideas present. Obviously barrels are a big obstacle to dodge as is the norm with DK, but DK Spaceport has a lot of unique ways to dodge them. There's some little trampolines of sorts that launch you up high in the sky along with wall riding and grind rail sections. The ending bit has you going up against Robo Donkey Kong while he launches barrels at you. Obviously this track is trying to invoke the feeling of the OG Donkey Kong game and it succeeds in doing so. A phenomenal ender to the first cup that also made me mad that DK doesn't have that dang Robo DK skin. Number 12, Dandelion Depths. This is another track that has a stupidly pretty looking section. Most of the track leading up to it is just turns going downhill with some grind rails. Eventually you reach a fork in the road that takes you down to the depths. Mario Kart World as a whole is an absolutely stunning game and it's moments like this where it shines so bright. This is a big water section with a lot of ramps to trick off of before you head back up to the surface in a big section with a lot of boost ramps. Obviously the best part here is the depths and man what a sight it is to behold. Not only is Dandelion Depths beautiful, it's also great to race on, bringing some great unity to make a great track. Number 11, Sky High Sundae. If you only played the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe version of this track, you're probably wondering why this is so high. Well let me tell you, this is by far the most improved remake track I've seen in a while. Instead of the rails on the track being absolutely pointless and ugly looking, now you can grind on them and they don't feel out of place at all. There's even some graham cracker looking walls that you can ride on, which is a fun addition. Not to mention how sweet and beautiful the track looks now. It's even fun to race on, unlike the original. Improved upon in every way and I'm so glad it is because the concept of this track is pretty neat. Number 10, Cheep Cheep Falls. Another track that focuses pretty heavily on racing on top of water, and if we want to talk about good theming then look no further. Cheep Cheep Falls has a lot of Japanese theming and the music really shows that too. Towards the end of the track you're driving downstream and there's some rails to grind on too. This section is so fast paced and intense and I love it so much. This track also does what I wish Salty Speedway did way better, and that's splitting up all the different water sections with interesting track design. Cheep Cheep Falls is an amazing track that I honestly wish went on a little longer. Number 9, Boo Cinema. The absolute coolest concept for a track in the entire franchise. The track has you drive through a movie theater and then gliding right through the screen. Inside you get to drive on a bunch of film reel and can even grind on the sides of it. This is the best portion of the track, and the main reason it's so high because my goodness, this is such a creative track decision. There's not a whole bunch else to the track besides a couple more rails to grind on, but all in all, the feeling that this track gives me is one that can't be beaten. Number 8, Wario Shipyard. The king of all water tracks in this game, and man, is it just such a fun one. Of course there's a bunch of sunken ships all around here, and even towards the end of the track you can grind on top of one. This track looks stunning and has some very fun moments. Even things as simple as a tiny little ramp at the end of the track is fun. I really love the theming of the track as I'm a big fan of all things pirates, and the greedy fat garlic lever being tied to this course makes it even better. Number 7, Great Question Mark Block Ruins. An absolutely amazing idea for a track. This track obviously contains a bunch of ruins, but what makes it so unique is that it takes place up in the sky. There's a bunch of clouds to trick off of along with walls of ruins to ride on. This is such a fast-paced track with a couple of splits in the road and different pathways to take. The pathways are similar for the most part and have a whole bunch of ramps on them. I love the gliding section at the end with boost rings to glide through too. This is just such a fun track to race on and one of the best original tracks in the game. Number 6, Wario Stadium. And now here we have one of the best remakes of a track in the game. The original Wario Stadium wasn't an awful track, but not one that I would go out of my way to race on ever again. Wario Stadium in Mario Kart World on the other hand is such an improvement over the OG. It definitely helps that you can trick in this game, as in Mario Kart 64 tricking hadn't been introduced yet, so all the ramps felt a bit useless. There's ramps to trick off of absolutely everywhere, and even a massive ramp to trick off of late in the track. Wario Stadium is pure fun fuel and one of the most improved remakes in Mario Kart history. Number 5, Bowser's Castle. Quite possibly my new favorite Bowser's Castle track in Mario Kart. There's lava absolutely everywhere, and the best part is taking a ramp through Fire Bowser's mouth. The track even makes you go way faster than usual, and it makes long drifts so much fun. There's a big section at the start with a bunch of grinding and wall riding, which I always love to see. One of the best parts might just be how long the jump at the end to the finish line is. This is a top tier Bowser's Castle, and if you don't think so, then you're high or something. Number 4, Airship Fortress. The best Mario Kart DS track ever, and man does it feel so fun to race on here in this remake. All the grind rail locations are perfect, like look at me mom, I'm grinding on these chains. The track feels so tense and hectic with all the bullet bills and fire bars scattered across the track. I kinda forgot about this track before Mario Kart World came out, and man am I glad they remade it because it's absolutely phenomenal. My favorite part of the track has to probably be the giant drift you get to do down a tower towards the end of the track. Man, what a track that gels so well with the Mario Kart World gameplay. Number 3, Rainbow Road. The Mario Kart staple track, and this is easily a top 3 Rainbow Road in Mario Kart history. Visuals wise, it is number 1 because man, this track looks beautiful. Rainbow Road is always a classic, and this iteration is no different. The track design overall is just a basic Rainbow Road, but this one switches things up a bit in certain places. There's a beautiful water section like in Starview Peak, but this one looks so much prettier. There's also some space station looking area right before you go past a bunch of thwomps while being even faster than before. A true masterpiece in track design with an amazing combination of fun and beauty. Number 2, Dino Dino Jungle. Another remake track that is absolutely phenomenal. I love dinosaurs and this track has plenty of them. Halfway through the track you get to drive through a research lab, and there's even a detour that you can take that wasn't there previously. On the second lap of the track, a T-Rex pops up out of nowhere and starts rampaging around the track. While on the way to the research center, there's even a dinosaur whose back you can grind on. That is such a cool feature and a great use of one of the new mechanics. Another remake track that absolutely hits the mark and uses the new mechanics introduced to great effect. But at number 1, of course, we have Mario Kart Wii's Toad Factory. Mario Kart Wii had the best tracks ever in a Mario Kart game, so of course a track remade from that game is going to place at the top. I love the concept of Toad's Factory so much, and I think it uses the wall riding and grinding mechanics beautifully. At the start, there's a trail of coins leading up the wall that shows that you can wall ride here to get to a new area. Towards the end, there's a big ramp that you can take to grind on some metal platforms. This is just so satisfying to perform, and the transition from that to the end is amazing. Toad's Factory is such a well-designed track, and the devs pulled out all the stops for this remake, making it my favorite track in Mario Kart World. Well, there you go, there's every track in Mario Kart World ranked. This is going to be my last Mario Kart World video, at least for a while, because man, I've slowly started turning into a Mario Kart channel. As always, I want to thank you guys for the recent support, as it's what's been keeping me going with doing this whole YouTube thing, and it means the world to me. Also, if you enjoyed, consider hitting the subscribe button so that I can continue to grow the channel, and it takes like 2 seconds, so why don't you do it? Alright, have a phenomenal rest of your day, be good people, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.